I didn't know about the house until the third letter arrived. The first was easy to ignore. Just some mortgage company I'd never heard of. Junk mail probably. The second had a logo, bold black letters, final notice, but no return address. That one I read twice. But it was the third that got my pulse up. It was addressed to Mrs. Clara Johnson, which is me, but the property listed wasn't mine. A 5-bedroom colonial-style house in Chestnut Hill. I live in an apartment in West Philly. I have since Harold died. I can barely keep the heater working, let alone own real estate in the suburbs. I called the number on the letter. Sat on hold for 13 minutes. When the woman finally answered, she confirmed the worst. Yes, ma'am. Your name is the primary borrower. Mortgage opened 6 months ago. Initial down payment was auto-wired from your savings. My savings. Which I hadn't touched in years. I hung up the phone slowly. My hands didn't shake. Not yet. I opened my bank app. The balance was wrong. Off by nearly $90,000. Then I opened my messages. And there she was. A text from my daughter, Rachel. Mom, don't freak out. I needed to move fast. I'll explain everything soon. She thought I would freak out. She didn't know I would get quiet at first. And then I'd ruin everything she built, using my name. I kept all 3 letters, even the ones I'd almost thrown away. The first had come a month earlier. Just a standard envelope, no return address, one of those pre-printed names that look like spam. I'd put it in the junk pile and forgotten it. The second arrived with a bold header, something about escrow and adjusted interest. It mentioned a payment I didn't remember making and a property I didn't recognize. I reread that one 3 times, sitting at my small kitchen table, the radiator hissing behind me. I'd meant to call someone. I didn't. Not because I wasn't worried. Because I already had a feeling I knew where this was heading. But it was the third one, thicker with stapled pages and bank seals, that demanded more than suspicion. It opened with, "This is your official loan servicing disclosure for mortgage ID 1149839. My name. My social security number. My address correct. But the property listed wasn't this apartment. It was a 5-bedroom home on Sycamore Lane. Chestnut Hill. I don't even drive past that part of town. I called the number on the letter and sat on hold. The woman who finally answered had the kind of voice trained for politeness but worn from repetition. She read back my file like it was any other Tuesday. Yes, ma'am. That loan is current, but the next payment is pending. We processed the down payment from your first federal account on January 3rd. You're listed as the sole borrower. I didn't argue. I didn't say she had the wrong person. I just said thank you and hung up. Then I opened my bank app. The savings account I'd protected since Harold passed, our emergency fund untouched for years, had been drained. $88,000 gone. Over 2 transfers. All 6 months ago. I stared at the screen for a long time. My tea's gone cold. Outside, traffic hissed through melting snow. A normal day. Until I opened my messages. A text from Rachel timestamped 4 days earlier. Mom, don't freak out. I needed to move fast. I'll explain everything soon. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop. Logged into the online mortgage portal with the ID number from the letter. Her name wasn't anywhere on the file. Just mine. Every document carried my signature. Neat, slanted, looped just like I wrote it in high school. She'd copied it perfectly. I clicked download PDF on the full loan agreement. Printed all 27 pages. Then I opened my filing cabinet, slid out an empty manila folder, and wrote across it in thick black marker, Rachel's debt. Clara didn't sleep that night. She lay flat, hands on her chest, watching the ceiling fan push air into a room that suddenly felt too full. The mortgage papers sat in a neat stack on the nightstand beside her. Her name is on every page. Her daughter's name is none. Rachel had always been smart. Always good at essays, quick with numbers. Always just a little too sure that charm could fill in what honesty didn't. Clara had spent years defending that confidence to other people. Now she wasn't sure who needed defending. In the morning she dressed slowly, pressed slacks, a sweater with a loose thread, orthopedic shoes she hadn't worn since Harold's memorial. She needed to see it for herself. She caught the 9:20 a.m. SEPTA bus toward Chestnut Hill, the ride long and quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies everything you've already decided to stop saying out loud. She got off 2 stops early, walked 3 blocks in the cold wind and turned onto Sycamore Lane. The house was easy to spot. New paint. Wide porch. 2 planters flanking the front door, fake ferns still wrapped in delivery tags. The driveway held a white SUV with Florida plates and a custom bumper sticker, "Baby on board." Clara stood across the street and studied it. No one came in or out, but she saw shadows move inside. Someone was home. She didn't knock. Back at her apartment, she made coffee and left it untouched. She opened her laptop and typed "forgery lone parent identity" into the search bar. Most of the results were from news stories. Elderly parents taken advantage of, adult children claiming it was temporary, lawsuits that dragged out for years. But one article stood out, about a woman who had documented everything privately, then legally transferred the home out from under her son's name. Clara bookmarked it. The next day she called her old credit union manager, someone who had known her and Harold when they still had 2 incomes and a full calendar. She didn't give details. Just asked, "What do I need to do if someone signed for something in my name without my consent?" The voice on the other end hesitated. "Is it your daughter?" Clara didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night her phone buzzed again. Wait. This time it was a voice message. "Hey Mom. I know this looks bad. But listen, I was going to tell you things moved fast. The market's insane and we had to act. And since you weren't using that savings, I figured I'd pay it back. I already put down hardwood. You'll love it. It's an investment for both of us. Call me, okay?" Clara didn't call. Instead, she opened the folder labeled "Rachel's Debt" and added a new document, the full voicemail transcribed line by line. She wrote one note beneath it, "Intention admitted. Consent not mentioned." The next morning she took out her will. Not the one from the lawyer's office. The one she'd handwritten and signed in a notebook she kept under her mattress. The one with Harold's name scratched out in blue ink and Rachel's listed as sole heir. She tore the page out, placed it on the kitchen table and wrote a new one beside it. This time she left space for a witness. And a different name. Clara arrived unannounced. She didn't call first. She didn't warn anyone. She simply dressed in her old navy coat, took the 8:45 bus, and stood at the edge of Sycamore Lane just as the mail truck turned the corner. The house looked brighter in daylight, like something from a listing brochure. Clean siding, a wreath on the door, and a swing on the porch that hadn't earned a single creak yet. He crossed the street slowly and knocked. Rachel answered too fast. Her hair was tied up in a loose bun, sweatshirt half-tucked, face flushed like someone mid-sentence. Behind her, the faint cry of a baby filtered in. She blinked twice, then smiled wide, a little too rehearsed. "Mom. Oh, wow, you didn't say you were coming." "I wasn't planning to," Clara replied. "I wanted to see the investment." Rachel hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course. Come in." The inside smelled like fresh paint and new leather. Everything was too white. Counters, curtains, staged flowers that hadn't wilted yet. A man's jacket hung over the dining chair. Claire didn't ask whose. "I know it was a surprise," Rachel said quickly, leading her toward the living room. "But honestly, this is a good move for us. The schools here are great and it's safe, and I needed to move fast or we'd have lost the offer." Clara stopped in the center of the room, the carpet still half curled at the edges. "You used my name." Rachel's voice dipped. "I was going to tell you. You didn't ask." Rachel rubbed her hands together. "I didn't want to stress you. You haven't used that account in years. You thought I'd never find out." Pause. Then a flash of irritation. "No. I thought you'd understand." Clara's eyes scanned the baseboards. "You said hardwood." Rachel blinked. "What?" "In your message. You said you installed hardwood." Rachel's smile returned, brittle this time. "Yeah. Well, that's coming. It's in the quote." Clara reached down, peeled up a corner of the rug. "Laminate. Poorly installed. You lied twice." "Okay, this isn't fair," Rachel snapped. "I'm under pressure. You wouldn't believe how hard it is right now to be a mom and hold things together. And I didn't ask for much. I just needed a signature and a little boost, and I was going to pay it back. It's not like you were using that money." "You took $88,000, Clara said, voice steady. "You forged my signature on a federal loan." Rachel folded her arms. "It's not like I took it from a stranger." Clara nodded slowly. "That's the only reason you're not in jail." Silence. In the hallway, the baby cried again. Rachel didn't move. I came to see how far you'd go, Clara said, adjusting her scarf. How I know. She walked toward the door. Rachel followed. Mom, wait, don't do anything crazy. This doesn't have to be some legal drama. Clara turned back. It already is. You just haven't read the second act. Rachel's jaw tightened. You're not going to ruin your own daughter over one bad decision. Clara smiled, just barely. You already did that. I'm just correcting the paperwork. She stepped outside and didn't look back. At the curb, she opened her bag and pulled out a small voice recorder. She'd started it the moment Rachel opened the door. The entire conversation, timed, labeled, and clear, was already backed up to her cloud account. At home, she transferred the file to her folder, labeled it Admission, Property Visit, March 8th, and added it to a growing list. She poured herself tea. This time she drank it hot. The law office was tucked between a consignment bridal shop and a tax service, the kind of place you could miss if you blinked while parallel parking. Clara didn't blink. She stepped inside with her folder pressed close to her chest, the manila edges worn now from handling. The receptionist didn't look up right away, but when she did, Clara gave her the name, Angela Durant, Elder Estate Specialist. The woman smiled politely, tapped a few keys and led her down a short hall. Angela was younger than Clara expected, early 40s maybe, but had the exact kind of no-nonsense energy Clara liked. Her handshake was firm, her eyes sharper than her blazer. Walk me through it, Angela said, already pulling a legal pad toward her. Clara did. Calmly, plainly. The forged loan, the bank withdrawals, the house in Chestnut Hill. The baby crying in the background, the laminate floors passed off as hardwood. She recited it all like reading from a manual. When she finished, Angela sat back, pen tapping once against the desk. First, yes, what she did is fraud. Signature forgery on a federal mortgage is criminal. Financial elder abuse, potentially. But you said she's your daughter. Do you want to pursue charges? Claire didn't flinch. Not yet. I want leverage. Angela nodded. Then we work civil, not criminal. You build a case. Gather everything. Recordings, bank statements, the text and voicemail, your savings account activity. I'll draft a letter of intent. You can serve her or just hold it as a pressure valve. Clara reached into her bag, pulled out the voice recorder, a flash drive, and 3 printed documents. Already done. Angela blinked. Then smiled. Good. You move like someone who's been ignored before. And someone who's not interested in being ignored again. They discussed options. Clara could freeze her credit, which she'd already done. She could petition for loan fraud review, but it might trigger a foreclosure on the house, which would affect Rachel and the baby. Angela asked carefully, "Do you want the house taken from her?" Clara didn't answer immediately. She looked down at her hands, folded neatly. "I want her to remember who gave it to her. And what it cost." Angela scribbled a few lines. "We'll need a new will, a property exclusion clause, and a cease-use affidavit for your name." "Do it." Before Clara left, Angela handed her a form with 2 lines highlighted. "Sign here. It revokes all future authorization from Rachel to act on your behalf, financial or medical." Clara signed without hesitation. That night, she scanned everything and created a new folder on her desktop. Second act. She copied all recordings into it, organized by date and topic. Then she wrote a short email to Rachel. "You knew what you were doing. So do I. The paperwork will speak next." She didn't send it. She saved it in drafts. She wanted Rachel to feel the silence first. The next morning, she called her utility company and had all statements redirected. Changed her email password. Moved half her remaining savings into a new account. She wasn't playing defense anymore. This wasn't about anger. It wasn't even about justice. It was about precision. The kind of precision her daughter had underestimated, and now couldn't undo. Rachel received the letter on a Friday afternoon, delivered not by a stranger but by her own mailman, smiling as always, handing over the stack like it was any other delivery. Bills, ads, and then the envelope. Plain white but heavier. Her name printed neatly on the front. Return address listed as Angela Durant, PC. She opened it without sitting down. 3 pages inside, paper thick, law firm crisp. The top line read, "Notice of unauthorized use of identity and intent to seek civil damages." For a moment she didn't breathe. Then she read it again, slower. It outlined the forged mortgage, the unauthorized withdrawal of nearly $90,000, the listing of Clara Johnson as sole borrower without legal consent. Attached was a statement of intent. Unless acknowledgement and restitution were made within 30 days, formal legal proceedings would begin. The phrase financial elder fraud appeared 3 times. Rachel stood in her pristine kitchen, laminate beneath her bare feet, and reread the phrase that hit the hardest. Documented admission of awareness and absence of permission has been secured. She knew what that meant. The visit. The recorder. He'd said too much. In the nursery, her daughter began to cry. Rachel didn't move right away. She folded the letter neatly, placed it on the table, then stood still for a long time, staring at nothing. Across the city, Clara didn't wait for a response. She spent the day updating her will with Angela, who had added a new clause. No beneficiary who initiates, encourages, or facilitates financial harm toward the estate holder shall remain eligible. That afternoon, she walked to the bank and closed her original savings account, the one Rachel had drained. She opened a new one in a credit union, under a version of her name Rachel didn't know, Clara E. Johnson. The middle initial was a lock Rachel didn't have the key to. Back at home, Clara brewed a pot of tea and called Beverly, her friend of 30 years who once helped her through Harold's funeral, and who still called every week just to say, "I'm listening." Clara told her everything. The forged mortgage. The silence. The letter. Beverly didn't interrupt. At the end she said only, "You need a witness? I'll be your first." That night, Clara placed the original mortgage documents in a fireproof folder and added a printed copy of the letter Rachel received. She labeled the tab, Phase 1 complete. The next morning Rachel called. Clara didn't pick up. She let the voicemail run, her daughter's voice shaking now. "Mom, okay. I got your letter. Can we talk? Please? I didn't think it'd get this far." Clara saved the message. She didn't reply. Not because she was being cruel, but because she was building something stronger than confrontation. She was building a record. A week passed. Another letter followed, this one softer. Rachel's handwriting, not typed. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I could fix it before you noticed. You have to believe me." But that was the problem. Clara didn't have to believe anything anymore. He had proof. That was all she'd ever needed. And now it was hers. All of it. The notary didn't ask questions. She flipped through the pages with practiced fingers, checked the ID twice, and laid out the signature line with a smooth, "Whenever you're ready." Clara signed slowly, pen steady, eyes unmoving. The paper beneath her hand was titled, Affidavit of Financial Severance and Successor Restriction. Angela had explained the language the day before, how it would legally prevent Rachel from accessing or inheriting anything tied to Clara's name, including but not limited to property, savings, insurance, or long-term care accounts. It wasn't just exclusion. It was a barrier, an iron gate that would lock behind the signature. The affidavit was public record eligible, which meant if Rachel ever tried to pose as her financial proxy again, any institution would see that she had been barred, officially notarized, filed. Clara added her initials to each page, then slid the pen back across the desk. "You sure you want to file it now?" the notary asked gently. Clara nodded. "It's overdue." The woman stamped it clean, embossed it, and handed Clara her copy in a cream folder. On the walk home, Clara passed a flower shop, paused, and bought herself a single marigold. Not because she was celebrating, but because it was the first time in weeks she felt upright. The next morning, Angela filed the affidavit with the city. Clara received confirmation by noon. An email with a subject line she read twice. Severance recorded. Beneficiary access denied. She printed it, added it to her file, and retitled the tab, Irreversible. Rachel didn't know yet. That was the point. Clara wasn't rushing this. Let her daughter keep thinking it was reparable. Let her make one more call, one more plea. It would make the next part quieter. 2 days later the phone rang. Rachel again. The message was longer this time, 4 minutes. "Mom, listen. I talked to someone. They said we can refinance the house, maybe move the loan to my name. If you just take your name off, it could work. Please. We'll make it right. I'll give you the money back." Clara saved the message. Labeled it, Ownership Leverage Attempt. Then she opened her will and made one final addition. It was a letter, short, handwritten, folded behind the main pages. "Rachel, you believed my silence was permission. It wasn't. It was a calculation. And now you are not owed, entitled, or welcome to the parts of me you once used. This wasn't revenge. It was a correction. She sealed the letter in the envelope marked executor only. That night she sat by the window watching the lights in her building flicker on floor by floor. The world kept turning. But she had stopped something, finally. Not a house. Not a signature. A cycle. The medical center smelled like bleach and overripe fruit, the kind of scent that never fully left no matter how new the building was. Clara sat in the waiting area, leather folder in her lap, coat zipped to the top. Her name was called after 17 minutes. She followed the nurse to a small consultation room where her primary doctor, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes and chronically dry hands, greeted her with a clipboard and a puzzled expression. "You listed a proxy change?" she asked, flipping to the back of Clara's intake form. Clara nodded. "Yes. I need to remove someone. And assign someone else." The doctor's smile tightened. "It's your daughter, right?" Clara didn't flinch. "Not anymore." The doctor said nothing. Just handed her the form. The checkbox was small but clear. Revoke previous proxy authorization. Clara ticked it, then wrote in a new name beneath it. Beverly Lynn Harris. Relationship. Longtime friend. Emergency contact. Medical decision holder. She signed and dated it, then slid it across the table. "Do you want to discuss why?" the doctor asked gently. Clara shook her head. "Only that if I can't speak, she will. And she knows exactly what I want." The doctor nodded, processed the change, and filed the document without hesitation. "Your records will update in 24 hours. If anything happens, she'll be called first. Not your daughter." Clara smiled faintly. "That's the point." On the bus ride home she watched the city pass by in long gray panels. Pharmacies, schools, laundromats, all of it drifting like background noise. But inside her coat pocket was a slip of paper, a confirmation copy of her updated health directive. The last thread had been cut. Rachel had been removed not just from inheritance or property, but from Clara's body, her breath, her future. She could no longer speak for her, sign for her, approve or deny a treatment, authorize or delay an ambulance. Nothing. The silence that followed felt clean. That evening, Clara and Beverly sat together in Clara's apartment, 2 mugs of tea and the television low in the background. Clara handed Beverly a copy of the medical directive. Beverly read it without blinking. "You sure?" she asked. "Yes. You know I'll follow everything to the letter. That's why it's you." They didn't talk about Rachel. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, Clara printed a new sign for her fridge. Clear, laminated, magnet-secured. Medical proxy on file. Do not contact anyone else. She placed a smaller copy in her wallet, right behind her ID. Later that day Rachel called again. No voicemail. Just one ring, then a hang-up. Clara didn't return it. Instead she sat at her desk, opened her files and reviewed the 3 core tabs. Financial lock, legal control, medical independence. She ran her finger down the checklist. All marks are complete. For the first time in months she exhaled with no tension in her chest. She was no longer waiting for anyone's permission to be protected. She was protected by design. Rachel showed up 2 weeks later without calling. Clara heard the knock first, 3 sharp raps, then a pause. She didn't answer. Through the peephole she saw her daughter on the other side of the door, holding a manila envelope, hair pulled back, eyes rimmed with fatigue. Rachel stood there for a full 2 minutes, then knocked again. Softer. "Mom," she called, voice cracking. "I know you're in there." Clara didn't speak. Didn't move. Rachel sighed audibly, then slid the envelope under the door and left. Clara waited 10 full minutes before picking it up. Inside was a single-page letter and a check. The letter said, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I should have told you. I panicked. This wasn't supposed to go like this. Please, let's just talk." The check was made out for $20,000. It wasn't even a quarter of what was taken. Clara folded the letter and the check, placed both into her folder labeled "Unsettled Attempt," and went back to washing dishes. That evening she mailed Rachel her own envelope, certified, tracked. Inside was a copy of the notarized affidavit, the amended will, and a single sticky note attached to the front page. "This is not punishment. This is protection. Of what's left." 2 days later the voicemail came. "So that's it? You're really cutting me out. No second chance. I said I was sorry. Clara deleted it without saving. Rachel wasn't wrong. It wasn't a second chance. It was the absence of one. A week passed. Then another. No calls. No letters. No knocks. Clara began sleeping deeper, walking longer, drinking her tea while it was still warm. One morning she opened the final version of her will and printed a clean copy. She placed it in a pale blue folder labeled, Executor File, Final. The only name on the inheritance list was Beverly. The rest, savings, retirement, belongings, instructions for burial, had been simplified. Streamlined. No apologies. No explanations. Just facts. One afternoon, while filing paperwork at her doctor's office, Clara overheard a woman in the lobby say, "You've got to let people learn. Family's family." Claire didn't look up. She just signed her form and walked out the door. Family, she had learned, is not who needs you when you're quiet. It's who honors you when you finally speak. That night, she lit a candle on the windowsill and placed the envelope from Rachel, the letter and the check, into a fireproof bag labeled, "Do not open." Not out of malice. Just memory. Just proof. Because if Rachel ever tried to tell this story another way, Clara wanted to be ready. And documented. The credit card was one she hadn't used in over a year. She only kept it open because it had her name embossed beside Harold's. His last account before the stroke, frozen now in memory and metal. But it was still active. Still vulnerable. Clara sat at her kitchen table with a notepad and a mug of weak coffee, dialing the customer service number printed on the back. The voice that answered was cheerful, scripted, unaware of the quiet gravity behind Clara's tone. "I need to close this account permanently," she said, "and remove any linked authorized users." The representative asked for her security word. Clara answered calmly, "Fidelity." The word Harold had chosen, ironic given the moment. Within 15 minutes the account was closed. Balance paid. User access revoked. The screen now showed zero activity, zero risk. Clara leaned back and crossed it off her list. Final card closed. Last tie cut. She wasn't angry anymore. She was emptying the house before a fire. Methodical, necessary, unhurried. That afternoon she visited the small post office near her apartment and ordered a new P.O. box. A private one. Rachel wouldn't know the number, wouldn't know where her mail was going. Clara updated her records. Bank, doctor, insurance, utilities with the new address. Slowly she turned every lever of her life inward, away from the daughter who once knew how to access everything. The next day Beverly came over with 2 storage bins. "Time to clean house?" she asked. Clara nodded. They went through every drawer, every envelope. Beverly shredded anything with a joint name. Anything Rachel once used to help. It took hours. At one point Beverly held up a photo. Rachel as a child, missing teeth, arms around Harold. "You want to keep this?" Claire took it gently. Looked at it for a long time. Then she nodded. "But not here." She slid it into a small lockbox labeled History, Private. The house felt lighter when they were done. Clara brewed tea. Sat down. Opened her laptop. Logged into her bank. Transferred the last of her liquid savings into an investment account with dual authority access. Only Clara and Beverly. Rachel's name didn't exist in any corner of her financial landscape anymore. She was now, in every way that mattered, disinherited. Forgotten in practice if not memory. That night Clara wrote in her journal, "I did not erase her. I just stopped letting her hold the pen." She closed the book. Slept 8 uninterrupted hours. For the first time since the 3rd letter arrived she dreamed nothing. No warning. No regret. Just breathe. Just rest. The first thing Clara noticed was the quiet. Not the tense kind filled with expectation or dread, but a gentler hush, the kind that follows closure, not loss. It had been 3 weeks since the last knock, the last voicemail, the last reach from Rachel. No more apology notes. No more, "I can explain" texts. Just stillness. Claire didn't miss it. She filled the silence with new things. On Mondays she visited the library again, the one near Rittenhouse where she used to take Rachel as a child. She borrowed memoirs, essays, books about women who'd rebuilt their lives from splinters. On Thursdays she took walks with Beverly, slow but steady, down blocks that reminded her of neighborhoods she never had the money to live in, but always the eyes to appreciate. On Sundays she cooked. Just for herself. A real breakfast. Eggs, toast, strong coffee in the mug Harold once called indestructible. She started wearing her rings again, not for fashion, but to feel weight on her fingers that wasn't grief. One afternoon she found a local class on personal archives, taught by a retired librarian who helped older adults document their lives. Clara signed up, brought in her folders. The woman looked over her paperwork and said softly, "You've done more here than most people manage in a court." Clara nodded. "It's not for court. It's for record." That same evening she cleared a shelf in her hall closet and labeled it, "My Proof." Inside she placed 3 binders, financial, legal, medical, and one slim journal marked Y. Not because she owed explanations. Because if anyone ever questioned her choices, she wanted the facts to outlive the rumors. She was done defending herself. But not done being understood. Later that week, Beverly gifted her a potted orchid. "To mark the first full month of peace," she said. Clara placed it near the window beside the marigold that still bloomed stubbornly in its pot. She didn't say thank you. She just hugged her. That said more. In her next check-in with Angela, Clara brought an updated summary of her decisions, organized by category and date. Angela flipped through it with reverence. "You've written a case study in personal closure." Clara smiled. "No. I've written my ending. I'm just not done living it." That night, Clara received an email from her health portal. Annual wellness check reminder. Click to schedule. She clicked yes. First time she hadn't canceled in years. No one had to force her to care for herself anymore. She chose it. Quietly. Without Rachel. Without guilt. It arrived in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. An envelope from Clara's estate attorney addressed not to Clara, but to Rachel Langford. Beverly dropped it in the outgoing mail like any other task. He didn't hesitate. Inside the letter was short, clinical, and final. "This letter serves to formally notify you that you are no longer designated as a beneficiary, proxy, or authorized contact in any capacity regarding the affairs of Clara E. Johnson. This revocation is legal, binding, and irrevocable as filed." Rachel read it in her car parked outside a Walgreens. Her daughter was asleep in the car seat behind her, a warm milk bottle tilted in one soft fist. For the first time since the forged mortgage, Rachel didn't feel panic. He felt something slower, colder. Absence. Not rage. No injury. Just absence. Her name had been erased. Not screamed at. Not cursed. Just quietly, systematically removed. She crumpled the letter in her lap but didn't throw it. There was nowhere to throw it that would undo what it meant. At home she searched Clara's name online, hoping to find some trace. Maybe a public blog, maybe a thread of vulnerability to pull. But what she found was worse. An entry on a small nonprofit site. Clara E. Johnson, document advocate, speaker, author of When They Use Your Name. A smiling photo. A quote beneath, "You can survive what you document." Rachel closed the laptop. The silence felt permanent now. Across town, Clara folded laundry slowly, humming under her breath. She'd taken to soft routines. Clean sheets, warm food, phone off by 9. When Beverly showed her the certified delivery confirmation, Clara nodded and said only, "Good." She didn't ask what Rachel's reaction had been. He didn't need to. The reaction wasn't the point. The erasure was. That night, Rachel left one last voicemail. "I just wanted you to know. I saw the letter. And I get it now. I really do." Claire didn't save it. She didn't even listen to the full recording. She deleted it after the first line. Her story didn't need an apology. It already had an ending with action. And that was the inheritance Rachel had left behind. An estate of absence. Of nothing. Clara didn't think the email would matter. It was just a submission form, an optional note for a nonprofit's open call for caregiver stories. Share your experience navigating legal or financial elder mistreatment. The words had sat in her inbox for days before she clicked. She didn't name Rachel. He didn't need to. She titled her story When They Use Your Name, wrote 3 quiet paragraphs and attached a photo of the original letter she received, the third one, the one that started it all. The response came within a week. "Your story speaks. Would you be open to publishing it?" Claire said yes. The article went live the following Monday, tucked inside a blog segment called Autonomy Archives. No fanfare. No drama. Just her words, unembellished, describing how she'd been made invisible in her own finances, and what she'd done to reverse it. The nonprofit emailed back 2 days later. We'd like to invite you to speak on our monthly webinar. Elder Autonomy in Practice. You're doing more than surviving. You're documenting. Beverly helped her prep. They practiced over tea with Clara reading from index cards while Beverly timed her. You don't need to sound angry, Beverly said gently. Just sound exact. Clara smiled. I've had enough practice. On the day of the webinar, Clara wore her navy cardigan, brushed her hair back and placed her folders in neat stacks behind the webcam frame. She spoke clearly. Fully. No rage. Just record. My name was used to purchase a house. My savings were taken without consent. I filed everything. I revoked everything. And I restored myself, on paper in full. Dozens of attendees watched. Some cried quietly on mute. One typed into the chat, "How do we teach our mothers to do this?" Another wrote, "This saved me from second-guessing myself." When it ended, Clara closed the laptop and turned to Beverly. "I didn't think it would mean anything," she said. Beverly shook her head. "It means they know you exist. Fully." That night, Clara wrote her first blog post under her own name. The title was simple, Documentation is Dignity. It was read 1,200 times in the first 24 hours. Rachel didn't reach out again. Not after that. Clara assumed she saw the post. Maybe even watched the webinar. But if she did, she stayed silent. Clara had left no door open. No loophole. No just one more chance. She had spoken publicly and legally. And the echo of her words now lived in something bigger than forgiveness. They lived on record. In public record. The letter from the Caregiver Alliance came in a navy envelope with silver lettering, elegant, respectful, unexpected. Clara opened it at her kitchen table, surrounded by steam from her morning kettle and the soft clink of her old mug. "We are pleased to inform you," it began, "that your story, when they use your name, has been nominated for the Eldercare Empowerment Award, recognizing public documentation efforts by individuals facing family-based financial harm." Clara reread it 3 times before setting it down. She didn't cry. She didn't even smile at first. She just exhaled, a long, steady, like breath she hadn't known she'd been holding. She didn't call anyone. Not right away. Instead, she took the letter and walked to her filing cabinet. She placed it in a new folder, bright red, labeled simply, Legacy. Later that week, she bought herself a new chair. Not expensive. Just comfortable. She placed it by the window where the light hit best in the afternoon, and on the small side table beside it she placed 3 things. A framed copy of her medical proxy form, a photo of Beverly smiling wide at her last birthday, and a new notebook, blank, waiting. She wrote only 1 sentence on the front page. "I am not what they used. I am what I protected." Then she closed it. That weekend, Beverly brought fresh bread and they ate it with butter and jam while watching an old courtroom drama on mute. Clara laughed at a line she only half heard, then surprised herself by laughing again, louder this time. Beverly looked over. "You all right?" Clara nodded. "I think I'm free." Beverly smiled. "That's the goal, isn't it?" They didn't talk about Rachel. They didn't need to. The silence around her was no longer tense. It was chosen. Clara now slept through the night without locking her bedroom door. She stopped checking her mailbox with dread. She even reopened her voicemail box, cleared it fully, changed the greeting and set a new passcode Rachel didn't know. One morning she sat with her tea and looked out over the city skyline. Not longing. Not loss. Just presence. She didn't feel victorious. He felt whole. And that, in all its quietness, was victory enough. Clara titled the piece slowly. She typed, deleted, retyped, then finally settled, "The last time someone used my name without asking." She didn't rush the paragraphs. She let them breathe. She wrote about the house. The forged loan. The discovery. The correction. Not with anger, she'd already exhaled that, but with record. "There's a silence that comes after betrayal," she wrote. "But there's also a sound after recovery. Mine is made of paper, stamps, clauses, and witness signatures." The article was published through the Elder Justice Network's main site. Within a day it was reshared over 1,000 times. Advocates, Nurses, daughters of distant mothers, and mothers once called burdens all posted comments. Thank you for showing us it's not too late. This gave me permission to start over. She took back more than money. She took back definition. Clara read the comments once, then closed the page. She didn't need applause. She just needed accuracy. Later that week she received a small package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a book, The Legal Survival Guide for Seniors. A yellow sticky note on the cover read, "You're already in the next edition. Page 57. He turned to it. There was her story summarized. Her affidavit cited. Her choices described as the clearest example of silent but irreversible elder boundary enforcement on record in 2025. Clara smiled softly. Not pride. Not satisfaction. Just stillness. That evening she updated her voicemail greeting. You've reached Clara Johnson. If you're calling to ask for something, be sure it's documented. Beverly laughed when she heard it. That's brutal. Clara shook her head. That's honest. She then wrote one last private post just for herself. Password protected. Dated. If anything happens to me, let the record show I knew what I was doing. And that I did it with both hands. She saved it. Closed the laptop. And for the first time in a long time she went to bed without checking her file cabinet. It was no longer a defense mechanism. It was an archive. Not of war but of return. Her name had once been used like currency. Now it was signature. And every stroke of the pen had come from her own hand. The sun rose early that morning, touching the edges of Clara's windowsill like it was seeking permission to enter. She was already awake, tea steeping beside her, wearing a shawl Beverly had knitted the previous winter. The orchid bloomed quietly in the corner, stubborn and elegant. Clara stood by her filing cabinet one last time, not to organize but to affirm. Every label is still in place. Every folder closed with intent. She opened the red one, Legacy, and slipped inside a printed copy of her last post, a photo of her and Beverly laughing in the park, and a new sheet she titled Final Requests, authored by me. It wasn't dramatic. Just a note. If I pass before Beverly, she knows the password. If not, let this file speak. She didn't include a letter to Rachel. That chapter was already documented in every legal line. Clara then moved to the kitchen and filled a small watering can. She walked to her front steps where a wooden box planter sat, half filled with herbs, the rest still bare. She pressed the watering can to the soil, steady. Then from her pocket she pulled out a small metal stake with a black tag. She pressed it into the earth. It read in clean white letters, "Protected property. No trespass. No take-backs." Beverly had it custom-made. Clara hadn't asked for it, but when she received it she didn't hesitate to plant it. It wasn't just for Rachel. It was for every silence Clara had endured, every form she'd signed under pressure, every time her name was used like it belonged to someone else. That afternoon the mail arrived. A small padded envelope, inside a necklace. A gift from the nonprofit. A silver tag with her full legal name, date of affidavit, and the words "Voice Verified." Clara held it for a long moment, then clasped it around her neck. The tag rested against her chest like armor. Not heavy, just certain. She sat down in her new chair, pulled the blanket over her lap and opened a fresh book. The final sound of the day wasn't a phone call or a knock or a message begging for revision. It was just the turning of a page. Clara didn't need to erase the past. She'd already sealed it. What mattered was what she left intact. Herself, her record, her name. And now she wore it. Silently. But undeniably. If this story made you pause, made you feel seen, or reminded you that silence isn't the same as safety, then do one thing for me. Subscribe. Because when you subscribe, you don't just support me, you support every woman who's ever been dismissed, disrespected, or written off inside her own home. And if you believe someone else needs to hear this, share it. Let your voice help carry another woman's truth. We document. We protect. We don't ask permission to be heard. We just make sure we are. So let me ask you this. Do you think this would have happened if she wasn't a black woman? Do you think they would have dared use her name, empty her account, steal her dignity if she didn't already live in a world that treats black women like they're supposed to endure it all without blinking? That's the part no one says out loud. Because it's not just elder neglect. It's the casual assumption that a black mother's life, her home, her savings, her name, is free to borrow, to break, to forget. They don't expect us to fight back. They expect silence. But what she gave them was record. What she gave herself was justice. And if you felt that in your chest, if this story felt like yours or your mother's or someone you know, then you need to subscribe. Right now. Because the more we name this, the less invisible we are. And share this too. Post it. Text it. Forward it. Because no, she wasn't too sensitive. She was too smart to stay silent. And every Black woman deserves to be this documented, this protected, this heard. If this story moved you even for a second, then don't just scroll away. Subscribe. Because when you subscribe, you aren't just following another voice. You're backing every single woman who's ever been told to sit down, shut up, or wait her turn. You're standing with the ones who raised families, held down jobs, survived betrayals, and still got told they were too dramatic for telling the truth. You're supporting the women who've been stolen from, in time, in money, in credit, in peace, and who finally said enough. I make stories like this for a reason. Not to entertain. To document. To protect. So if you've ever said, this could have been my mother, or me, then this is your space too. Every subscription tells the platform, these stories matter. It tells the world, we are watching, we are remembering, and we are done being quiet. So hit that subscribe button. Don't wait. Because silence doesn't change systems. Visibility does. And every single time you support this kind of work, another woman learns how to protect herself before the damage is done.